How's it going, Mets and overall baseball fans? Welcome back to the channel. And folks, do we have a discussion? Oh, it's only on the most coveted shortstop available in the free agent market, and how the New York Metropolitans may just find themselves having a chance to land said shortstop, that being in Carlos Correa. But before we get into it all, folks, all I ask is that if you're new to the channel, don't hesitate to smash that like and subscribe button, helping us get to 20k subs for our next short-term goal. Thank you guys all so much in advance as always. And of course, I have to let you all know that today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your #1 source for all your sports betting needs, so make sure you head over to betonline.ag using promo code Bleav at BLEAV. That way you get yourself to 50% off welcome bonus. BetOnline, it's where the games begin. And now, folks, let's let the show begin, because we know the Mets have had nothing short of a tremendous offseason thus far, in a world where, yes, they lose Jacob deGrom, but in a 9-day span they guaranteed over $350+ million to the likes of WardyNYM, re-signing him on that massive deal, Justin Verlander on the wall behind me already, David Robertson, and most recently, of course, that being in Kodai Senga, who we've broken down our raw reactions on our latest Bleav in Queens podcast. I'll make sure to check it out if you haven't already, folks. Greatly appreciate it. But point is that the Mets are already $420+ million set for the 2023 season, including the taxes that they're facing because of the Steve Cohen tax. But this is not stopping Steve Cohen. He made it abundantly clear last offseason when the tax was put in place: if I'm going to go over this luxury tax, I'm going to blow through it. There's no point in doing it a little bit when the Mets have clear holes in their roster. But now that they have filled this rotation, solidified it, bullpen, they have a little bit more work to do there. But offensively, that is the next get for this Mets team. This is what they have to focus on most, more than likely, going forward for the remainder of the offseason, which they have plenty of time to do so. So the question is, what type of bat or bats can the Mets use for this offense? Well, Billy Upler has said that he's not technically prioritizing just a slugger. The Mets are in the market in both the free agent and infield market that he made note of during his time in the winter meetings over this past week. So while there's no guarantees on the exact type of player the Mets will land, we do know that nothing is impossible with Steve Cohen. And because of this, that's why you cannot officially rule out the potential pursuit of Carlos Correa. And I don't think I need to harp on much. You know who Carlos is. Here's the stat line down below. A phenomenal 2022 campaign for one of the best shortstops in the game, one of the best infielders overall. 1-year prove-it deal with the Minnesota Twins, 22 home runs, 70 runs scored, 64 RBIs, or around 300 average or close to, over 800 OPS. Correa has been a phenomenal player his entire career, a championship level player. Cheating scandal aside, he still proved it by having a massive 2021 postseason with the Houston Astros in his final year with the club. So we know that Carlos Correa, yes, he has his personality to him, but he is a star player, and he's looking for a massive contract after opting out of a $35 million deal for his second year in the 2-year stint with the Minnesota Twins. So he's more than likely looking for a bag over a long-term deal, but there is still some potential to a degree that he could sign a shorter term deal if it's really high AAV, and if there's any team that could do that, it is in fact the New York Mets. So let's break down the pros and cons here. One, how realistic is Carlos Correa with the Mets? How can this even be a fit? Well, we know that the Mets were enamored, truly loved the potential pursuit of Trey Turner, who just signed an 11-year, $300+ million deal with the Mets rivals in the Phillies. And Turner's someone that the Mets would have loved. However, they had their priorities set on pitching first and foremost. With all their uncertainties, they had to fill up that rotation, and now that they've done that, Correa is still out there, and the Mets have been active in this infield market. To what degree, that is yet to be seen. We know Correa's market is robust and big. A lot of teams love this guy and are probably more than likely going to land him over the Mets, but there is a fair argument to be had that, again, Steve Cohen going win now for this upcoming season. Who's not to say that the Mets won't even continue to be win now and push a $450+ million payroll, including taxes, if they're already at $420? I mean, how much farther is Cohen going to go? That's the big question. But there's no denying that a guy like Carlos Correa could be a fit for this Mets team based on his ability to shift to third base. Unlike Trey Turner, who could only play at second base, which is decent at, or the outfield, which he really doesn't have many reps at, Carlos Correa last played third base during his time as teammates with Francisco Lindor at the most recent World Baseball Classic representing Team Puerto Rico. And in doing so, that Team PR team was so much fun to watch. You had Javi Baez at second, who of course was a New York Met for only half a season in 2021. Now the Mets have a potential pursuit here in Carlos Correa, and there's no denying that if you land someone like him, he checks off all the boxes for what a Mets team would be looking for. Not only adding a bat that has more power, aside from Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso for the upcoming season, but you land a guy at the young age of 28 that is not only an elite athlete, but truly a dynamic dynamic bat and rakes against lefties especially. He had an 800 OPS in 2022 against right-handers, but against southpaws, a 300 average, a 400 on base percentage, and a 945 OPS. This is exactly what you would want if you're a Mets fan and if you're Steve Cohen. So now it's just a matter of how realistic can this be for a Mets team that, again, they had interest in Trey Turner, weren't able to go deep in that market because they had priorities elsewhere. Now that they brought WardyNYM back, and now that they rounded out the rotation, all the focus you'd have to imagine, aside from really rounding out the remainder of that bullpen, is adding at minimum one or multiple pieces to this offense. Now, again, maybe the Mets don't do anything drastic, and that wouldn't be surprising at all, but nothing is impossible with Steve Cohen, and we've quickly learned that as he has dominated the offseason 2 straight years in a row. MLB fans are flustered. They're like, how is this possible? How is Steve Cohen doing this? This is what happens when you have an owner that's not only a multi-billionaire, but a diehard fan willing to spend to help his team be in a win-now stage, and the Mets are in a win-now stage right now. So for a Mets team that's headlined by Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer at the top of your rotation on short-term deals, Mets have a lot of shorter-term deals on this team, including Jose Quintana, for instance. Kodai Senga can opt out after 3 years. So the Mets are in this win now. Go all in, Steve Cohen. If he wants to go all in, we've seen that already. You can never say it's impossible with landing Carlos Correa. But now let's get into why Carlos Correa wouldn't be a fit for the Mets. Well, one, could he be stubborn and say, I only want to play shortstop? Yes, that's definitely possible. Could he be someone that says, I don't want anything less than, say, a $300+ million deal, and maybe that shrugs the Mets aside? Yes, that's possible too. Could the Mets maybe throw him a 1-year deal at upwards $40-45 million and say, F it, let's just go all in next year? Nothing's impossible. But why would Carlos Correa want to do a short-term deal again, at least a 1-year deal, even if it's ridiculous AAV, when, if you guys know Citi Field, it's not a hitter's park the way that other parks in baseball are, right? So it wouldn't benefit him from a market value aspect unless he balls out. And again, he very well could in a loaded Mets lineup with having sparked RBIs like no tomorrow, with the Mets destined to have one of the better offenses in baseball once again next season. But they need the slugging, they need the power. And again, Carlos Correa, he may be a favorite to go to the San Francisco Giants right now. He may be a favorite to even go to the Yanks far more than the Mets. We've seen rumblings there. A lot of teams like Carlos Correa, but do not be surprised if Steve Cohen pulls a last-minute swing if they're not already involved in this Correa market to potentially land the superstar shortstop and shift him to third base. Then you can have Eduardo Escobar either as a trade chip, get rid of that salary, or have him as potentially your DH, splitting time with, say, Daniel Vogelbach based on matchups. Then maybe you want to trade Brett Beatty because he's a big trade chip, unless you want to consider him in the corner outfield going forward. You get very creative here, but more than anything, if the Mets do not land Carlos Correa, and it's, say, aside from Correa's decision-making, the biggest reason why I could see the Mets not doing this deal is because they have a roughly $500 million man in their sights after landing Kodai Senga, that being in the fellow Japanese superstar, the best player on the planet in Shohei Ohtani, who they're 1000% going to be all in on and are potentially already favorites for next offseason, if not by the 2023 trade deadline. So Mets fans, I want to know all your thoughts. How do you feel about Carlos Correa, the Mets potentially making a pursuit here? How likely or unlikely do you believe it's going to be? And in the scenario where the Mets do actually go all in and give a valiant effort for Carlos Correa, how do you feel about the team going forward? Again, this is a guy that's a playoff performer. Cheating scandal aside with the Astros, he still balled out post-cheating scandal in Houston. He is a game changer for any team that would have the luxury of acquiring him. With how stacked the NL East is getting, the NL and baseball overall, it doesn't hurt to land another superstar as long as Steve Cohen is willing to get the job done. But let me also emphasize once more, if the Mets do not get Correa, no one should be slighted or bothered by this. It's not nearly as likely as other scenarios that the Mets have had this offseason. They've killed it. Correa's a pipe dream. Now let's just see if that pipe dream does in fact become a reality, like it has for other players in the past that the Mets have pursued. But Mets fans, thank you all so much more for watching. Again, if you enjoyed this kind of Mets content and you want to see more great Mets content like this, don't hesitate from smashing that like and subscribe button. Help me get to 20K subs for our next short-term goal. Thank you guys all so much in advance, and of course, I'll talk to you again real soon. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.